At midnight, my wife's desperate call shattered the silence. "Help," she cried. She'd been robbed and abandoned 150 miles from home. When I reached her, I found her shivering in the snow, discarded by my son-in-law and daughter. The next day, I arrived at their door with a surprise they'd never see coming. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this and comment the city you're watching from. At 60 years old, I thought I'd heard every kind of emergency call possible. 30 years of marriage teach you to brace for the unexpected. But nothing could prepare me for Sarah's voice at 3 a.m., trembling with a terror I'd never heard before. "Frank, please, I need help. They left me here," she whispered, her words broken by chattering teeth. Wind howled in the background. "Where are you? What happened?" I asked, jolting upright. "I'm at some gas station. Johnson's Corner, I think. Highway 10, she said, voice cracking. "Frank, I'm so cold. My phone's almost dead." Johnson's Corner was nearly 150 miles from our home in Columbus, Ohio. What was Sarah doing out there in the dead of night? "Stay exactly where you are. I'm coming now," I told her. I threw on clothes, faster than I had in years, hands shaking as I fumbled for my keys. The drive felt endless, each mile marker mocking me as I pushed my truck through the empty highways of central Ohio. Sarah had sounded so small, so broken. In 30 years together, I'd never heard her like that. My mind raced with questions, but fear for her safety drowned them out. When I pulled into the gas station lot, I spotted her immediately. Sarah was huddled against the brick wall, wrapped in a thin jacket, useless against the freezing February night. Her silver hair was disheveled, and even from a distance, I could see her trembling. "Sarah," I called, rushing toward her. She looked up, and my heart nearly stopped. Her face was pale, lips almost blue from the cold, but her eyes, they held a raw, primal fear I'd never seen. "Oh, God. Frank," she sobbed, collapsing into my arms. Her body was ice cold, even through her jacket. "I didn't think you'd come." "Of course I came," I said, holding her tight. "What happened? Where's your car?" She pulled back slightly, and I noticed the dark circles under her eyes, her hands still shaking. "Emily took my keys," she said. "She said I wasn't welcome anymore." Emily, our 34-year-old daughter, who called every Sunday, who brought her husband Jason over for dinner each month, who seemed so devoted. "Emily did this to you." I couldn't keep the disbelief from my voice. Sarah nodded, fresh tears falling. "She's so angry. Frank, she said terrible things." Jason just stood there, watching. Then she told me to get out and find my own way home. I helped Sarah into the truck, cranking the heat as high as it would go. She shivered violently, her breath coming in small puffs, despite the warming air. "We'll talk about this when you're safe and warm," I said, pulling out of the lot. "But right now, tell me if you're hurt." "I'm not hurt. Not physically," she said, wrapping her arms around herself. "But Frank," she looked at me with such hatred, like I was a stranger who'd done something unforgivable. The drive back to Columbus was mostly silent, broken only by Sarah's occasional sniffles and the heater's hum. I kept glancing at her, watching color slowly return to her cheeks. But something was wrong beyond this incident. Sarah fidgeted with her wedding ring, a habit she had only when hiding something. Sarah, what aren't you telling me? I asked. She stared out the window for a long moment. She found out about the money. She said finally. What money? The inheritance from my mother. She found the papers. A cold knot formed in my stomach. What papers? Your mother left you her house. We sold it 4 years ago. Sarah turned to me, guilt written across her face. No, Frank, there was more, much more. How much more? I pressed. The property in Maine, the one mother never told anyone about. It's worth $900, 000. I nearly swerved off the road. $900, 000. Sarah's mother died 6 years ago, and we'd gone through her paperwork together. Or so I thought. You've known about this for 6 years and never told me? I asked. Stunned. I was going to tell you, Sarah said, her voice small. I was planning to, but then I started thinking about what to do with it. And I made a decision. What kind of decision? She took a shaky breath. I decided to leave it to the children's hospital, the one where Emily volunteers. I thought it would be a beautiful surprise, a way to honor Mother's memory while helping kids. The pieces were coming together, but they formed a picture I didn't like. And Emily found out how she was helping me organize old papers last week. Sarah said she found the deed and the appraisal. When she realized it was worth $900, 000, she assumed it was part of her inheritance. Her voice dropped to a whisper. When I told her about the hospital, she exploded. I pulled into our driveway, but neither of us moved. The silence stretched like a chasm. She called me selfish, Sarah continued, staring at her hands. Said I was stealing from my own family. Jason agreed with her. He said I was being manipulated by the hospital into giving away Emily's future. And you didn't think to discuss this with me first? I asked. Sarah flinched. I wanted it to be my decision, my mother's money, my choice. I didn't want anyone influencing me, not even you. I understood the principle, but the execution was devastating. Sarah had made a unilateral decision about nearly $1 million without telling her husband or daughter. Emily had discovered it by accident and felt betrayed. Our family was fracturing, maybe beyond repair. Frank, there's something else, Sarah said, her voice so quiet I almost missed it. What else? She faced me, fear creeping back into her eyes. Emily said something before she left me at that gas station. She said she knew I was hiding other things too. She said she'd find out everything I'd kept from her. The way she said it made my blood run cold. Sarah had always been private about her family's finances. Her mother was eccentric, secretive about money. If she'd hidden $900, 000, for 6 years, what else might there be? Sarah, please tell me that's all of it, I said. She looked away, and I knew there was more. I need to get inside and warm up. She said, instead, we can talk about the rest tomorrow. As we walked to our front door, I realized finding Sarah at that gas station was just the beginning. Whatever Emily had uncovered, whatever drove her to abandon her mother in the middle of nowhere, was bigger than a $900, 000 property. Tomorrow, I'd find out how big. But first, I had a visit to pay to my daughter. Because no matter what Sarah had hidden, no one treats my wife the way Emily had tonight. Nobody. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sarah's terrified face at the gas station, heard the tremor in her voice when she described Emily's hateful look. By 6 a.m., I gave up and made coffee, the silence in our kitchen heavier than ever. Sarah came downstairs around 7, moving like someone twice her age. She'd changed into warm clothes, but still looked fragile, breakable. The confident woman I'd married 30 years ago seemed lost somewhere on that highway last night. "How are you feeling?" I asked, pouring her coffee. "Like I've lost my daughter," she said, sitting heavily at the table, hands wrapped around the mug. "Frank, I keep seeing the look in her eyes. She wasn't just angry. She was disgusted with me." I sat across from her, studying her face. In the morning light, I saw she'd been crying again. But there was something else, something that clenched my stomach with dread. "Sarah, last night you said Emily thought you were hiding other things. What did you mean she was quiet so long?" I thought she wouldn't answer. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible. "There might be some stock certificates from my father's side." "Might be." "Are there stock certificates?" Sarah set down her coffee, hands trembling. "Blue chip stocks he bought in the 1980s. They've been in a safe deposit box for 25 years. The knot in my stomach tightened. "How much are they worth?" "I had them appraised last year. Around $500. 000. I stared at my wife. This woman, I thought I knew completely. $500. 000. She'd been sitting on over $1 million total. And I'd known nothing. Why? "Sarah, why keep this from me?" From Emily. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Because I saw what money did to my family growing up. My father's siblings fought over every penny when he died. My mother's sister tried to contest the will. I didn't want that poison in our lives. So you hid it instead," I said. "I decided to protect us from it," Sarah said, her voice stronger, defensive. "I've been planning to give most of it away the hospital, the animal shelter, maybe a small scholarship fund. I wanted to use it for good, not let it tear our family apart." "But Sarah, you're not protecting us by lying," I said. "You're creating the exact situation you tried to avoid." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "I know that now. But I thought if I handled it quietly, made the donations without anyone knowing, it would be better for everyone." I stood and walked to the window, looking at our backyard where Emily used to play. The swing set stood there, rusty but full of memories from a simpler time when our biggest issue was getting her to eat broccoli. "What exactly did Emily say to you last night?" I asked. Sarah's voice came from behind, hollow. She called me a liar and a thief. Said I'd been stealing her inheritance, pretending to be a good mother while planning to leave her nothing. "And Jason?" I asked. Sarah's tone turned bitter. "He was worse. Kept talking about how families should take care of each other. How selfish I was. He said they'd been struggling to make ends meet while I sat on a fortune. That surprised me. Jason was a software engineer, made good money. Emily worked part-time at the children's hospital. But they never seemed to struggle financially. Struggling how? I don't know." Sarah said. "Jason mentioned student loans, credit card debt. Said they'd been too proud to ask for help. But finding out about the money Felt like I'd watched them suffer while hoarding wealth. Something didn't sit right. Emily and Jason lived in a nice house, drove decent cars, took vacations. If they were struggling, they'd hidden it well. Sarah, when did you plan to tell me about all this? She turned to face me. Next month, after I finalized the charity arrangements. I wanted it as a done deal, so you wouldn't try to talk me out of it. Talk you out of giving away our money. It's not our money. Frank, she said, it was my parents' money. I inherited it, so it's my decision. Technically, she was right. But after 30 years of marriage, we'd made every financial decision together. Her excluding me from something this big felt like a betrayal, almost as sharp as what Emily felt. So, what's your plan now? I asked. I don't know, Sarah said, looking lost, older than her 55 years. I can't give Emily the money now. Not after how she treated me. But I can't donate it either. Not when she's this angry. My phone buzzed with a text. Asterisk. Dad. We need to talk. Can you come over this afternoon without Mom? She owes us an explanation. I showed Sarah the message. She read it and started crying harder. She can't even stand to be in the same room as me. Maybe that's for the best right now, I said, though it hurt. Maybe I should talk to her. Try to understand her perspective. What if she convinces you I'm wrong? What if you take her side? The question revealed Sarah's shaken confidence. She wasn't just afraid of losing Emily. She feared losing me too. Sarah, I'm angry you kept this from me, I said. I'm hurt. You didn't trust me enough to include me, but I'm not abandoning you. Relief flooded her face, but it was fleeting. There's something else you need to know before you see Emily. My heart sank. What now? Last night, when she was yelling, she said she'd been talking to a lawyer. Sarah said, a lawyer about what? About contesting my will, about whether hiding assets from family could be considered fraud. The bottom dropped out of my stomach. Emily wasn't just angry, she was considering legal action against her mother. Did she say which lawyer? No. But Jason seemed to know a lot about inheritance law. Too much. I looked at Sarah, really looked at her, and saw a woman who'd made choices she thought were right, but had created a nightmare. The money she'd tried to protect us from was doing exactly what she feared, tearing us apart. I'm going to see Emily this afternoon, I said. I'm going to find out what's going on. What will you tell her the truth? That you made mistakes? But from love, not greed. I paused. And that there's no excuse for leaving you stranded in the middle of nowhere. Sarah nodded, but doubt lingered in her eyes. She wasn't sure love could fix this. Honestly, neither was I. But I was about to learn how far my daughter would go to claim what she believed was hers. And something told me the answer would change everything I thought I knew about the family I'd built. I spent the morning pacing our house, replaying every talk with Emily from the past few months, searching for missed signs. Had she seemed more stressed about money? Had Jason dropped hints about troubles? The more I thought, the more I realized how little I knew about my daughter's life. By noon, I couldn't wait longer. I drove to Emily's house, a modest 2-story colonial in a decent neighborhood in Dayton. About 25 minutes from ours. Jason's SUV was in the driveway. Good. I wanted to hear from both, Emily answered before I could knock, as if she'd been watching. She looked tired, her usually neat hair in a messy ponytail, no makeup. But her eyes were hard, determined. "Dad," she said, stepping aside to let me in. No warmth in the gesture. "Emily, we need to talk about last night." I said, "You're right. We do," she replied, leading me to the living room. Jason sat on the couch, laptop open, papers legal ones. It seemed spread across the coffee table. "Jason?" I nodded, keeping my voice neutral. "Frank, glad you could come," he said, closing the laptop and gathering the papers. "We've been doing some research since last night." Research into what I asked. Emily sat across from me, posture rigid. Into our legal options when a family member hides assets and plans to disinherit their children. The accusation hit like a punch. "Emily, your mother wasn't trying to disinherit you. She was trying to do good with inherited money." "Something good," Emily's voice rose. "Dad, do you know how much money we're talking about? Your mother told me about the main property and the stock certificates. I know it's significant." Jason leaned forward. "Did she tell you about the life insurance policies?" My blood went cold. "What life insurance policies?" Emily and Jason exchanged a look. "The ones she's been paying premiums on for 20 years, Emily said. "High-value policies on both her parents, even after they died." "That's impossible," I said. "You can't collect life insurance on people already dead." "No," Jason said, his lecturing tone grating. "But you can keep paying premiums and collect dividends on whole life policies. Your wife's been doing exactly that." I stared, trying to process. How much money are we talking about? "The policies are worth about $300, 000 combined," Emily said. "Money that's been sitting there, earning interest, while Jason and I have been drowning in debt." "What debt?" I asked. "You two have good jobs. You live well." Jason laughed, no humor in it. "Good jobs, Frank. I was laid off 9 months ago. Emily's part-time hospital work barely covers groceries. We're behind on our mortgage, maxed out on credit cards, facing bankruptcy." This was the first I'd heard of it. "Why didn't you tell us you were struggling?" "Because Mom made it clear she didn't want to help," Emily said, voice bitter. Every time I mentioned money being tight, she'd change the subject. Now I know why. She was sitting on over $1 million while watching us suffer. "Emily, that's not fair. Your mother didn't know you were in financial trouble." "Did she?" Jason pulled out a paper. "This is a letter Emily sent your wife 6 months ago, asking for a small loan to help with our mortgage, $25, 000. Your wife never responded." I took the letter, recognizing Emily's handwriting. It was heartbreaking, explaining their situation, promising repayment, expressing shame at asking, and Sarah had never mentioned it. "I don't understand," I said. "Sarah never told me about this because she didn't want to help," Emily said, tears starting. She ignored my letter, avoided my calls when I followed up. "I thought it was because you two were struggling too, or she was disappointed in us. I never imagined she was hoarding money." My head spun. How many secrets had Sarah kept? How many lies had I lived with? "Where did you find out about all these assets?" I asked. Jason answered, Emily was helping your wife organize papers for taxes. She found statements that didn't make sense, payments to insurance companies, property tax bills for addresses we didn't recognize. When she asked, your wife got defensive, evasive. So I did some digging. Emily continued. I found the safe deposit box key in Mom's jewelry box. The next day, I went to the bank. You went through your mother's safe deposit box without permission. I'm listed as a co-signer. Dad, she said, from when she was worried about emergencies a few years ago. She forgot about that detail. The picture clarified, and it was worse than I'd imagined. Sarah hadn't just hidden money, she'd ignored her daughter's plea for help while sitting on assets that could have solved their problems. Emily, I understand why you're angry, I said, but leaving your mother stranded at a gas station in the middle of the night. She deserved it, Jason interrupted. Do you know what it's like to lose sleep every night worrying about losing your house? To have your credit destroyed, your future ruined, while your mother-in-law has enough money to fix everything, but chooses to give it to strangers. Instead, I looked at my daughter, really looked, and saw the stress lines around her eyes, the weight loss, the exhaustion. She'd been suffering, and I'd been oblivious. Why didn't you come to me, I asked. If Sarah wasn't responding, why not ask me for help? Emily's face crumpled. Because I was ashamed. Asking your parents for money feels like failure. And every time I tried to talk to you about anything serious, Mom would redirect the conversation. Another piece clicked. Sarah had controlled our family's financial narrative, keeping me isolated from decisions, even conversations about money. I'd thought she was being responsible, handling details so I didn't have to. Instead, she'd been manipulating us all. What do you want from me now, I asked. We want what's fair, Jason said. Emily is Sarah's only child. That money should be her inheritance, not given to charities. And we want it now, Emily added, before Mom can hide it somewhere else or give it away out of spite. The demand hung heavy. They weren't just angry, they were desperate. And desperation makes people do things they wouldn't normally consider. What if she refuses? I asked. Jason's expression hardened. Then we'll file a legal challenge. Elder financial abuse, breach of fiduciary duty, intentional infliction of emotional distress. We've been researching options. You'd sue your own mother. Our mother chose strangers over her family. Emily shot back. She watched us struggle while planning to give our inheritance to a hospital that raises millions yearly. Dad, they don't need Mom's money. We do. I sat there, looking at my daughter, seeing Sarah's stubborn streak in her eyes, but also a young woman who felt betrayed by the person who should have protected her most. Neither was entirely wrong, nor entirely right. Give me some time to talk to your mother, I said. Let me see if I can make her understand your perspective. How long? Jason asked. A few days? Maybe a week. No, he said, shaking his head. We're done waiting. We need an answer by this weekend. And if she says no? Emily met my eyes. We filed a lawsuit Monday morning. And Dad, we'll win. The lawyer we consulted said cases like this are growing common, and courts are taking them seriously. I stood, feeling every one of my 60 years. I'll talk to her. As I walked to the door, Emily called after me. Dad, I love Mom. I do. But she's made choices that have consequences. If she can't see that, she'll have to live with what happens next. Driving home, I realized Sarah's attempt to shield our family from money's poison had created something worse, a war. In family wars, everybody loses. But something about Jason's story didn't add up. A software engineer unemployed for 9 months should have severance, benefits, savings. Their financial crisis seemed too conveniently timed with the discovery of Sarah's assets. I'd have to do some digging before the weekend deadline. Because if I was right, Jason wasn't just desperate, he was dangerous. I didn't go straight home after leaving Emily's. I sat in my truck in their driveway for 10 minutes, trying to make sense of what I'd learned. Something about Jason's story felt off, but I couldn't pinpoint why. When I finally got home, Sarah was at the kitchen table, a cup of tea gone cold hours ago. She looked up with desperate hope. How did it go? I sat across from her, unsure where to start. Sarah, did Emily send you a letter 6 months ago, asking for help with her mortgage? The color drained from her face. How do you know about that? They showed it to me. Why didn't you tell me? She stared into her cold tea. Because I was afraid you'd want to help them. Of course I would have wanted to help. She's our daughter. With what money? Frank, our savings, our retirement fund. We're not wealthy people. But you had over $1 million in accounts and safe deposit boxes. That money wasn't ours. She said, it was my parents' money. I was the custodian, not the owner. I rubbed my temples, a headache building. Sarah, that's not how inheritance works. When your parents died, that money became yours to do with as you chose. And I chose to use it for good, she said, instead of enabling Emily's poor financial decisions. Poor financial decisions. Jason lost his job. That's not a decision that's bad luck. Sarah looked up sharply. Is that what he told you? Her tone made me pause. What do you mean Jason wasn't laid off? Frank? He was fired. Fired for what? She stood and went to the junk drawer, pulling out a manila envelope and handing it to me. After Emily sent that letter, I got worried. So I did some investigating. Inside were printouts of articles, court documents, employment records. The top article's headline made my stomach drop. Asterisk. Local software engineer arrested for embezzlement. Asterisk. What the hell is this? Jason was stealing from his company. Sarah said, small amounts at first, then larger. When they caught him, they fired him and pressed charges. The only reason he's not in jail is he agreed to pay restitution. I read through the details. Jason had skimmed client accounts for over 3 years, totaling nearly $75,000. This is why they need money, Sarah said. Not because of unemployment, but because he has to pay back what he stole. She nodded grimly. And the restitution payments are what's putting them behind on their mortgage. Their crisis isn't bad luck. Frank, it's the consequence of Jason's crimes. Does Emily know about this? I don't think so. Sarah said, look at the dates. He was fired in March. Charges filed in May. The letter she sent was in April. She probably thought he was laid off. I felt sick. My daughter was living with a criminal, trusting him, letting him guide her decisions against her mother. And Jason was using her anger and desperation to cover his crimes. Why didn't you tell her? Why not show her this? Because I hoped he'd tell her himself. Sarah said, voice bitter. I hoped he'd come clean, and maybe they could work through it. I was trying to protect her from another painful truth, and instead, you let her think you were the villain. I said, yes. She admitted, I thought it better for her to be angry at me than have her marriage destroyed by learning her husband's a thief. I set the papers down, hands shaking. Sarah, you can't keep making decisions for other people. You can't protect everyone from the truth. I know that now, she said. But Frank, what would you have done? Would you have destroyed Emily's marriage to save your own reputation? It was a fair question, and I wasn't sure of the answer. But I knew keeping secrets had only worsened everything. There's more, Sarah said quietly. More what? More Jason doesn't know I know. She pulled another paper from the envelope. He's been gambling online poker, sports betting. The embezzlement wasn't just about paying bills. It was about covering gambling debts. The paper was a credit report showing Jason's activity cash advances, payments to gambling sites, loans from predatory-sounding companies. How much does he owe? Based on what I found, probably another $50, 000, or $60, 000, maybe more. Sarah said. I leaned back, trying to grasp the magnitude. Jason wasn't just a man who'd made a mistake. He had serious problems, dragging my daughter down with him. You think he's using Emily's anger about the inheritance to get money for his debts? I think he saw an opportunity when Emily found those papers. Sarah said, he's been encouraging her anger, feeding her sense of injustice, making her believe I'm the enemy. Because if Emily gets the inheritance, he gets access too. Exactly, I said. And Emily, stressed and scared about their finances, is ready to believe you're the cause of their problems. I thought back to my talk with Emily and Jason. Jason had done most of the talking, had legal research ready, pushed for the weekend deadline. Emily was emotional, angry, but Jason was calculating. Sarah, we have to tell her the truth, I said. She won't believe it from me, Sarah replied. She thinks I'm a liar who's been hiding money while watching her suffer. Then we'll prove it, I said. We'll show her the court documents, the employment records. Sarah shook her head. And destroy her marriage in the process. Frank, she loves him. Finding out he's been lying about everything will hurt her more than losing her relationship with me. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. I honestly don't know which would hurt her more. I stood and walked to the window, looking at our backyard again. The swing set looked forlorn in the afternoon light, a reminder of simpler times when the biggest decision was what to cook for dinner. Sarah, what if we give them some money? I asked. Not the full inheritance, but enough to help with their immediate problems. Reward Jason for stealing and lying. I mean, save our daughter from losing her house while we figure out the bigger issues. Sarah considered this. How much? Enough to catch up their mortgage and cover a few months of expenses. Maybe $40, 000, or $50, 000. And the gambling debts, the restitution payments, those are Jason's problems to solve, I said. Sarah was silent for several minutes, wrestling with the decision. Finally, she spoke. If we do this, it has to come with conditions. Emily has to agree to financial counseling. Jason has to get counseling for his gambling problem. And they both have to agree to complete transparency about their finances going forward. And if they refuse, then they don't get the money. and they'll face the lawsuit and everything that comes with it, she said. I nodded. It seemed a reasonable compromise, assuming Emily and Jason would agree. There's one more thing, Sarah said. If we're going to help them, I want to know Jason understands the consequences of lying to my daughter. I want to look him in the eye and make sure he knows I know what he's been doing. That could be dangerous. Sarah, I said, if he's desperate enough, with serious gambling debts, then it's even more important he knows he can't manipulate this family anymore. She replied. I looked at my wife, seeing a strength I'd forgotten. Sarah had made serious mistakes, but she'd been trying to protect our family in her own way. When do you want to talk to them tomorrow? She said. I want to give them one chance to be honest before we reveal what we know. And if they keep lying, Sarah's expression hardened, then they'll find out hiding the truth isn't the same as making it go away. And Jason will learn that threatening my family has consequences he hasn't considered. I realized tomorrow's conversation wouldn't just determine our relationship with Emily. It would decide whether Jason continued to manipulate my daughter or if his house of lies came crashing down. Either way, the secrets poisoning our family were about to surface, and not everyone would survive the revelation. The next morning, I called Emily and asked if Sarah and I could come over to discuss the situation. There was a long pause before she agreed, and I heard Jason in the background asking questions I couldn't make out. We'll be there at 2, I told her. Dad, if Mom's planning to lecture us about being grateful or patient, save the trip, she said. Just give us an hour. Emily, I replied. That's all I'm asking. Sarah spent the morning preparing like she was going into battle. She organized all the documents she'd gathered on Jason, made copies, and rehearsed what she'd say. I'd never seen her so focused, so determined. Are you sure about this approach? I asked as we drove to Dayton. What if it backfires? Then at least she'll know the truth, Sarah said. Whatever happens after that is her choice. When we arrived, Emily and Jason were waiting in their living room. The legal papers were still spread across the coffee table, and Jason had his laptop open again. They'd clearly been preparing too. Mom? Emily greeted, her voice cold but not hostile. Progress, I supposed. Hello, sweetheart, Sarah said, her voice steady, though her hands trembled slightly as she sat. Jason skipped pleasantries. So, what's the decision? Are you going to do right by your daughter, or are we filing that lawsuit on Monday? Sarah looked directly at him. Before we discuss any financial arrangements, I think we all need to be completely honest with each other. We've been honest, Emily said. We told you about our situation, our debts, everything. Have you? Sarah pulled the manila envelope from her purse. Jason, would you like to tell Emily about your employment situation, the real reason you're not working? Jason's face went pale, but his expression quickly hardened. I told her I was laid off. The economy's been tough. You were fired for embezzlement, Sarah said calmly, and you're currently facing criminal charges. The silence in the room was deafening. Emily turned to Jason, confusion and disbelief on her face. What is she talking about? She whispered. Jason stood abruptly. She's lying. She's making things up to deflect from her own selfishness. Sarah pulled out the printed articles and court documents, spreading them on the table next to Jason's legal papers. These are public records, Jason. Would you like to explain to your wife why you stole $75,000 from your employer? Emily picked up an article, her face growing whiter as she read, Jason, what is this? That's what it is, he stammered. Your mother hired some private investigator to dig up dirt on me. I didn't hire anyone. Sarah said, I used Google and public court records. Everything I found is available to anyone who knows where to look. Emily was reading the documents now, hands shaking. It says you were stealing from client accounts for 3 years. It says you agreed to pay restitution to avoid jail time. Jason ran his hands through his hair, his composure cracking. Emily, I can explain. It's not what it looks like. Then explain it, Emily said, voice growing stronger, angrier. Explain how stealing money from your clients isn't what it looks like. I was borrowing it, he said. I always intended to pay it back. With what money I interjected. According to these records, you were already behind on payments. Jason turned on me. Stay out of this. Frank, this is between me and my wife. No, Emily said, standing. This involves my parents because you've been using our financial problems to pressure them for money. Money you need because you're a criminal. The word asterisk, criminal asterisk, hit Jason like a blow. His face flushed red, and for a moment, I thought he might turn violent. I made a mistake. Okay, he said. I was trying to cover some temporary cash flow issues. Sarah pulled out another set of papers. What about the gambling debts? Were those temporary cash flow issues too? Jason went still. What gambling debts? The $55,000 you owe to various online casinos and bookmakers. Sarah said. The cash advances you've been taking to cover losses. The payday loans. Emily sank back into her chair, staring at Jason like she'd never seen him before. You've been gambling. Everyone gambles a little, Jason said. It's not a big deal. $55,000 isn't a little gambling. Jason, I said, that's an addiction. And that's why you really need my mother's money, Emily said, her voice hollow with realization. Not for our mortgage, not for our bills, for your debts. Jason sat back down, his defiance crumbling. Emily, I love you. I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did. It happened. Emily said, you stole money for 3 years. You gambled away thousands while I worked extra shifts to keep us afloat. You made me hate my own mother because I thought she was the reason we were struggling. She turned to Sarah. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what I said, for leaving you at that gas station. I was wrong. Sarah stood and crossed the room, wrapping Emily in a hug that seemed to release months of tension. You don't need to apologize, sweetheart, Sarah said. You were lied to. You were manipulated. Over Emily's shoulder, I saw Jason watching them, panic in his eyes. He was losing control. And desperate people do dangerous things. This is very touching, Jason said, voice turning cold. But it doesn't solve the immediate problem. I still owe money to people who don't care about our family drama. What kind of consequences? I asked. Jason hesitated. Some of the people I owe aren't banks. They're not patient with late payments. The implication hung in the air. Jason wasn't just facing financial ruin. He was potentially in physical danger. And by extension, so was Emily. Emily turned around, realizing the same. Are you saying we're in danger because of your gambling debts? Not if we can pay them back quickly, Jason said. That's why I need access to your mother's money. You need it, Sarah said sharply. Emily doesn't. You created this problem, and now you want to use my daughter and my family's money to solve it. Jason's mask slipped completely. Your family's money? Emily is your family. I'm her husband. What affects me affects her. Not anymore, Emily said quietly. We all turned to her. She stood by the window, her reflection in the glass showing a woman aged 10 years and an hour. What do you mean? Jason asked. I mean I can't be married to someone who lies about everything. Emily said, I can't build a life with someone who steals and gambles away money while I work to keep us afloat. You made me hate my mother because I thought she was why we struggled. Emily, please, Jason said. We can work through this. People make mistakes. Mistakes? Emily's voice rose. You systematically stole for 3 years. You gambled thousands while I ate peanut butter sandwiches to save money. You made me believe Mom was the problem. She turned to Sarah. Mom, I'm sorry I didn't trust you. I'm sorry I believed his version over yours. You don't need to apologize, Sarah said, tears starting. You were manipulated by someone you loved. That's not your fault. The next few hours were a blur of paperwork and phone calls. Sarah contacted a lawyer to draw up divorce papers. I called a locksmith to change the locks on Emily's house. Jason packed his belongings in sullen silence, shooting resentful looks at us all. By evening, it was done. Jason signed the papers, took his $50,000, and left. I watched his SUV disappear down the street, a weight lifting from my shoulders. Do you think he'll stay away? Emily asked. He'll stay away. I said, men like Jason are cowards. They only pick fights they think they can win. Sarah was quieter, thoughtful. I should have told you the truth from the beginning, she said to Emily, about the money, about Jason, about everything. Why didn't you? Emily asked. Because I was trying to protect you, Sarah said. I thought if I could handle everything quietly, you'd never be hurt by it. Emily shook her head. Mom, you can't protect me from the truth. I'm not a child anymore. I know that now, Sarah said. And I promise, no more secrets. 3 weeks later, we had a family dinner at our house. Just the 3 of us. The way it should be. Emily had moved back into her house and was seeing a counselor to process everything. Sarah had set up the inheritance donations as planned, but also established a trust fund for Emily's future. Money with no strings attached. Any word from Jason? I asked as we cleared the dishes. His lawyer called yesterday. Emily said, he moved to Nevada, got a job in Reno. Sarah snorted. A gambling addict in Reno. That'll end well. I don't care anymore, Emily said. That's his choice. Later, as Sarah and I sat on our back porch watching the sunset, she leaned against my shoulder. Do you think Emily will be okay? She's stronger than we gave her credit for. I said, she'll be fine. I never thought I'd be grateful for someone's greed. Sarah said, but if Jason hadn't been so desperate, we might never have discovered who he really was. Emily might have spent years being destroyed by his lies. Sarah paused. Frank, do you forgive me for keeping all those secrets I thought about it? Sarah had made serious mistakes. but they came from love, not selfishness. In the end, her caution about money protected our family from someone who'd have taken everything. "I forgive you," I said, "but no more secrets. Sarah, we're a team. Decisions together. No more secrets." She agreed. 7 months later, I got a call from a detective in Reno. Jason had been arrested again, this time for check fraud, targeting elderly casino patrons. He'd learned nothing from our family. I didn't tell Emily about the call. Some things aren't worth sharing. But I allowed myself a moment of satisfaction, knowing justice had caught up with him. Emily was dating someone new, a teacher she'd met at the hospital where she volunteered. He was kind, honest, and had no clue about our family's money beyond what we earned. Sarah insisted on a background check, which made Emily laugh. Trust, but verify. Sarah said, "That's my new motto." As for the inheritance, Sarah donated most as planned. The Children's Hospital received $500, 000. The animal shelter got $200, 000, and $60, 000, went to a foundation helping families with gambling addiction. "I want something good to come from what Jason put us through," Sarah explained. The rest, about $250, 000, went into a trust for Emily. Accessible at 40 or earlier for major needs like a house or starting a family, but not for a husband's gambling debts, as the trust specified. Looking back, Sarah's desire to shield our family from money's corrupting influence proved right, just not as she expected. The money didn't corrupt us. It revealed someone already corrupt, willing to destroy those he claimed to love for easy wealth. Sometimes, the best way to protect your family isn't shielding them from the truth. It's ensuring the truth comes out before it's too late. And sometimes, the greatest gift isn't money. It's the freedom to discover who someone really is when they think no one's watching. Jason showed us exactly who he was, and we ensured he couldn't hide behind lies anymore. That was worth more than any inheritance. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of the story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.